Okay. Ready to go. So when you open up Vectorworks, a new document, you're going to kind of get a grid. It's in some sort of default scale right now, which is kind of why the grid is like really tiny. So we need to make sure that a couple of things in our settings are like already in place before we start. So the first thing is, wait, I'm going to share my desktop instead. So all the way up here, we are working in Vectorworks Spotlight. So Vectorworks is a huge CAD program that like allows for a whole ton of different industries to use it. Vectorworks Spotlight is specifically meant for theater and events. So that's what we want to make sure that we are in. So we can go, I think, window. We want to make sure that we're in the right workspace. The Spotlight, we already are in it, but I'm trying to figure out how you guys can change it when the time comes to make sure that you are in Vectorworks Spotlight. I can't find. It's somewhere on here. Anyway, I'll look it up so that we can make sure that we have it. But Vectorworks Spotlight is what you want to make sure that you're in. So your tool sets will be Spotlight related, right? So we've got down here, there's like lighting and event design and rigging, different options, which I am not going to go into, but it's there, which is awesome. So like you can click here and you can see like video screens and stage decks and even soft goods. This is something that we may look at eventually. You can put in different seating options, et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty cool. I keep it here on notes because I will be using some of these things, drawing notes. But anyway, it's really nice to know that Vectorworks is already set up for what we want to do. And of course, I've showed you guys this before, but I'm going to show you again. We want to set up our page to work for us. So right up here is where we can do sort of like a page setup and our design layers. So we are, oh, this is why. Let's see. Okay, it's already, so the new document that I created already has all of these layers built in. So that's why it's showing up like that. Let's see. So page setup, we want to make sure that we are working in, I just like to make 8.5 by 11 because then you guys can print it and you can have it if you want. So the width, we'll do landscape. So we'll do 11 by 8.5. So that's how we set up our page. And we also want to edit the scale. So for some reason we're on a light plot design layer, but that's irrelevant. Okay, scale. And we're gonna work in 1/2 inch scale for this project. Okay, so I'm going to change it like that to 1/2 inch and hit OK and OK. And there we go. Now we're on the light plot, but I think that's okay. So I'm on a laptop with a mouse, a wireless mouse, but I use the trackpad on my laptop to actually physically zoom in and out. Because I find that to be the easiest way rather than go up here. This right here is the zoom. And as I zoom in and out, you can see that this percentage is changing, right? So if I want to zoom in and out, I like to do it on the fly rather than go up here and be like, and try to guess which number I want. Or there's also a magnifying tool right here, which if you click on it, you can then make a space, click again, and it'll automatically zoom in on just that spot. But I don't find that really useful. So that's up to you. This tool right here, the selection tool, is your basic mouse. It lets you click on different things that you have created and highlight them, move them, etc. The hand right here is to pan, so you can click on it and move around. So, which is really helpful if I'm zoomed way in like this and I just kind of want to move over along this line. There is a keyboard shortcut to that, which is the same keyboard shortcut as Photoshop. If I'm on the selection tool and I hold down the space bar, I think it'll work. At least it has before, but right now it's, oh, there it goes. Oh, it sounds like something's wrong with the space bar. Okay. But anyway, that's the pan, pretty simple. So today we're gonna make a traditional flat and we're gonna do an orthographic projection of it. So you'll remember orthographic projection is multiple views of the same object, but they're all lined up with each other. So we're gonna do a traditional flat. The very first thing we want to do, I like to use, we're not going to worry about title block and border for this because this is just an exercise. What I like to do is use the rectangle tool for pieces of wood, just because I like to know where all four sides of my wood are. You can do it by using the line tool or the double line tool. It will look the same in the end, but I like remembering that my piece of wood is a rectangle. So we will draw each of our pieces of wood for a traditional flat. I'm gonna make sure I have the drawing in front of me. Here we go. Okay. And we will make it a 4x8 piece of wood. So the first thing we're going to start with is we're going to make our rails. So I'm on this tool right here. And one click creates my end point, right? And then as I drag out, my rectangle is created, and then I'll click again to solidify my rectangle, right? So once I've done that, you have this little window here called object info. So any object that is selected has all of its information up here. So I can go up here and I can just type in the width and the height of my my rectangle, how I want it to be. And because right now what I did was made it 11 feet 1.5 inches by 3 feet 7.5 inches, as you can see right here, which isn't what I want, right? I want a piece of 2x4. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to delete this and show you another trick. So one click to start it and drag it out. Before I click again, if I hit the tab button, it comes right over to the side here. And it shows me, like, it's highlighted the x-axis. So that's like the length of my piece of wood. So my piece of wood, you guys will remember from your cut list that you made yesterday, for my rails, I want them to be 4 feet, right? And then if I tab again, remember it's in 1/2 inch scale, but you're going to talk to the computer in real life terms. So 4 feet, which is actually 2 inches on my scale drawing, but we're going to talk to it in real life terms. So 4 feet. If I tab again, it automatically makes that 4 feet for me. Okay. And now it's going to ask me the other dimension, the Y dimension, the up and down dimension. What do I want that to be? So I know for a traditional flat, where did my piece of wood go? So I know for my traditional flat, it's made with 2x4 on, or not 2x4, sorry, 1x3 on its face, and that the thickness of that face is 2.5 inches, right? So we're gonna go 2.5 inches, enter. So what I've just created, now basically it's highlighted that position. And so I have to hit enter one more time to say, yes, that is exactly what I mean. So I hit enter a third time. And now I have a piece of 1x3 that measures 4 feet by 2.5 inches. I can use, so then I'm still on the rectangle tool, right? It's highlighted here, and that's the most recent tool that I used. I'm going to go over here to my selection tool, and I'm going to zoom in so I can see all the corners. So on my selection tool now, I can move this piece of wood around because it's already selected orange. So there is several ways you can move this. It's highlighted all of these, each corner and midpoints automatically. When I hover my mouse over, there's a couple things that can happen. If a point turns red, like it is right now, if a point turns red, that means that that's the point that I'm going to be manipulating. The computer sort of like decided that's the point that I'm closest to, which is why if you're going to manipulate an object at all, it's important to zoom in so it can really tell which one you're doing. If you get a line like this, it's a diagonal line with 2 arrows on either end. If I were to click and drag, that's going to reshape my object. Like that would be me saying, I want to grow this longer. So I could grab this midpoint, drag it out, and you can see that the width of the object is actually changing. I don't want to do that because I want it to be at 4 feet. Oh. So if I hover over it like, just like that, and I see a little cross like this, that means I'm grabbing that corner and I'm moving the whole thing to a different location on the page. And it's going to try to snap it along a line, like right here. It's going to try to guess that I want to move it at a 45-degree angle, right? Or that I want to move it at a 30-degree angle, or that I want to move it horizontally. I find the horizontal one really helpful, or even this one really helpful, because a lot of times I just want to move it to nudge it somewhere. The one thing about Vectorworks that I kind of find annoying, that I haven't found a solution for, there may be, but I'm brand new, so I'm not sure, is that you can't just nudge it with the arrows on your keyboard like you could on Photoshop if you had an object selected to just like, oh, I just want to nudge it over just a tiny bit. I don't want to have to drag it. If I hit the arrow keys on here, it actually pans. So that's not helpful if I'm trying to move an object. But what I do want to do is I want to center this piece of wood on my page. So I want to move it over here to be sort of in line with that. So I'm going to grab the center of the object, move it along. Let's see, and put it right there. And I believe it's in line with the page center now. Yeah. Oh, that dialog box is going to come up every 15 minutes and automatically ask you if you want to save what you're working on. And actually, in most cases, it's really annoying because it doesn't save your document. It saves a different version of your document. So then you may end up with like 100. If you always do it, you could end up with 100 different versions of your document, which I find not helpful. But yeah, so to make my other rail, I'm going to duplicate this object. So I'm going to make sure I'm on my selection tool, make sure the object's selected. and then right click on it. And just like anything else, I can copy and then paste my object. I'm going to grab the center and I'm going to move it down here. It's not in its exact location yet because I'm not sure, because we're going to line it up with our other ones. So the next thing I'm going to do is make my styles. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool again. And right over here, this is my little snapping palette. And this will help you to snap to different parts of the drawing, right? So I've got them on, which means just even hovering right here, it's assuming that I want my next object to line up with this corner here, which is correct. I do want it to do that. So I'm going to click right there, drag down, and I'm going to do the same thing with this rectangle. I'm going to figure out what I want. So you know this because of your cut list. We want this to be 8 feet long from the corner to the corner, but we're going to subtract the 2.5 inches from each side, right? So we're going to make this 7 feet. 7 feet, how many inches is it? 2.5 plus 2.5 is 5 inches. So 7 feet, 7 inches. I'm going to hit tab again, and I'm going to tell it that the X, oh, I did it backwards. Sorry, hold on. Oops, let's do it again. So actually, the X-axis is 2.5 inches because that's the width of the wood. There we go. And then we want the length to be 7 feet. 7 inches, and I think it's gonna, yeah. So I've tried to measure it in a positive instead of negative. So it tried to guess this as point as 0. But I can just, I'm gonna hit enter anyway, and I'm just going to drag and move it. There we go. So now I have style here. I'm going to do the same thing that I did with my other rail. I'm going to right click on it while I'm on the selection tool and hit copy and paste. And then I'm going to, from the top, I'm going to grab the top right corner and I'm going to hover until it makes that X or the cross. That way I know I'm moving the whole object and I'm not reshaping the object. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to line it up with this corner right here. And now I know I have 2 styles. So now I need to line this guy up, right? So I'm going to take this corner here. I'm going to hover over it until it's, make sure it's selected first. Hover over it until I see the cross come up. So I can click, oh, I want this one. Okay, there we go. So that I can drag it to that corner and line it up. And then zoom out. So the other thing I want you to notice is we have an attributes menu here. This menu is so that each object can be like given certain qualities, right? It can be solid, it can be dashed, we can change the color. We can even add like an image, like if we wanted to put like a texture in there. And we can also change the line weight of it. So we have a basic outline here. Each of these 4 objects is filled in with white, which when printed on white paper isn't going to show up. So it doesn't matter very much, but I do want to point out that it wouldn't normally be filled white. So I'm going to use my selection tool, drag over the whole thing, which is then going to highlight all 4 of those objects. And I can change the attribute to none, which means transparent. Okay, so what do we want to do next? We want to make sure that this is lined up pretty much in the center of our page. Right now, it's slightly off center. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to highlight it. And then I should be able to find the center of those objects. Maybe not. But I can move them along a vertical line like that. And that's pretty close to center. And I think since we're going to do a top view anyway, we need to make sure we have space up there. So I think that's looking pretty good. Good place on our palette. So I'm going to deselect that. The next thing that I want to make is our toggles. So I'm going to do the same thing with our rectangle tool. Actually, let's see, we want to measure the correct distance, right? Remember I said, so the toggles on a traditional flat are every 4 feet on center, right? So we want to know from here, from this point down, wait, thought I clicked on the line tool. Okay, from this point down, we want it to measure 4 feet. So I'll check that out. I'm at 4 feet right there. Okay, so this line I just drew so that we have a guide, right? So I want the center of my my next rectangle to line up with this point. No, that's right. I'm going to draw it out here. So our toggle is going to be, let's see, it's going to be fitting inside the stiles. So that's 5 feet or 5 inches off of 4 feet. It's going to be 3 feet, 7 inches. And the thickness is going to be 2.5. And then hit enter again to select or to solidify that object. And in order to move it, I'm going to click here. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to make sure that I'm grabbing the center of the object. And I'm going to put that center of that object right there. And I've created our toggle. So now I can delete this line. Just like that. And I'm going to also select this and give it a 0 or a none attribute for filling it in. Cool. So we now want to add straps to our toggle. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool again. And there's no real, what's the word? No real rule about the length of a strap, only that it needs to be set in from the very edge, 3/4 of an inch. So let's give ourselves another little marking line. Zoom right in again. Give ourselves, let's see. 0.75 inches. Oh, I see it went up there. Again, let's see. So I do know I'm not sure why it's automatically doing that, but I can right click on it and there's rotate option and I can rotate it to the left 90 degrees. So I'll do that. And then I'm going to click the end of it, move it to there. So now I have a little guide for insetting my strap 3/4 of an inch from the edge. So let's go ahead and make ourselves a rectangle. I think there we go. It's trying to snap to lots of things, that's why. Okay, so our strap, oh. We want to tab, and we are going to make its length, let's see, there's no hard fast rule, so let's make it like 5 inches. And the thickness of it, of course, is going to be 2.5. Oh, and I'm going to hit enter again. And then, of course, I'm going to grab this point, line it right up with my guide, and I've given myself a strap. So I'm going to change this attribute to be hatched and with diagonal line. So now I know that that's a strap. I'm going to select it. I think it can do this. Select it and this line at the same time by holding Shift to select multiple things. Yeah. Let's see, rotate. I'm going to copy. Oh, goodness. So with my selection tool, I want to select the line and I want to select that rectangle. I'm going to copy, paste, there we go. And I'm going to right click on it and hit rotate again. And I'm going to flip it horizontal. And I'm going to grab this point and drag it all the way over. So sometimes it's like off by a hair and you can't tell unless you zoom way in. Here we go. Okay. So now I have those straps, they're inset 3/4 of an inch, and I can delete this line on that side and the other side. Okay. So there's the 2 straps on my toggle. We want to also add 4 corner blocks. And I think we can do that. We don't have a triangle tool, I don't think. So we may have to draw it from scratch using the lines, which is fine. Or the polygon tool, I guess we can do that. So I'm going to make a right triangle piece that goes right here. So I'm going to draw see 6 inches and draw myself a little triangle just like that. So using this polygon tool, I'll do it one more time. You can draw any sort of shape with straight edges. that you want just by clicking at each point that you want it to be an angle. So I will click once here to start my drawing and then drag out. It's automatically snapping to 6 inches, but that's fine because that works great for us. So when the length is at 6 inches, I'm going to click it and then I can drag it in another direction, which is snapping to 6 inches. So I click it and then back to the beginning and snap, and then it automatically creates a shape. So this shape works the same way that a rectangle would work. I can change its attributes over here, which I'm going to do. I'm going to make it hashed again. And I'm going to click on this little side thing, or this drop down menu, by the way, brings this up, and there's a ton of options that I've never looked at, but this is a really common one. So I click on that and then hit select at the bottom. And now I have a hashed piece. So I'm going to delete this one because it's redundant. Oh, I have to do it. Remember, go to your selection tool in order to do that. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing here. I want a 3/4 of an inch line this way and this way so I can figure out which point I need to line my corner block up with. So I'm going to zoom in here. Do the same thing again. Click here and then drag out. .75 inches. Enter. And I'm going to do the same thing going down here. I don't want that point. If you're ever, I should say that out loud so you guys know what I'm doing. If you're ever starting to draw something like this and it's not what you want to do, if you hit the delete button, it will unselect it for you, and then you can click another point with your tool. So let's see, I want to go down from here. Let's do it here. Tab and 0.75 inches. Enter. And enter again to select. So those are my 2 little guide points, and I should be able now to line this up. I'm going to make sure you're on the selection tool when you want to move something, and we're looking for that cross that looks like this. Drag it over, and it's going to try to snap in those corners because I have all the snapping turned on. Let's see if I put it here. Grab this corner, move again here. Let me it's having a hard time. Let's see. Don't need to do that. I need to move over. Oh my goodness, it's having such a hard time. Let's see. Snapping to where I want it to. Oops. If you move something wrong, like I accidentally just moved my marker line that I made, you can hit Command Z and that will undo it. So what I'm going to do is, because my object is I'm having a hard time snapping my object to the points that I want it to, I'm going to move my points. So I'm going to move this over here. snapping, maybe I want that one. Is it snapping? Yeah, okay. So by turning that snapping off, it made it much easier for it to move away from this grid line. So this is snapping to the grid, which made it want to be right here. All right, let's see. All right, so now I've given myself a nice guide point. That's the point of where I want my corner block to be. So here we go. Now I've done that. I'm going to do the same thing again, where I'm going to highlight my grid lines and the piece, and I'm going to duplicate it and move it to the other four corners. So making sure I'm on my selection tool, I can select that object. Holding shift, I can select this object and that object. Then I can right click on them, hit copy. Right click over here and hit paste. So I want to rotate this. I want to flip it vertically. So in order to do that, I'm going to do the same thing I did before with the strap. I'm going to right click on rotate and I'm going to flip it horizontal. Now I can do the same thing. I'm going to line this point and this point up with these points over here. Let's see, I'll drag this. And I'm just going to zoom in to make sure that those points are lined up, and it looks like they are. Yep. So that means I put them in the right place. I'm still on the selection tool, click away to deselect all of it and click just this line, delete, just this line, delete. Oh, I forgot to do that on this side, so I'll go back. Delete and delete. Okay. Now I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and I haven't copied anything else. So I should be able to right click and still paste another one of these corner blocks. This one needs to rotate, how much? Rotate to the right 90 degrees. Yep. I'll grab that point again and drag it over here. So that's another reason why I like using the trackpad to zoom with my attached mouse. So I can zoom while I have something selected on with my mouse. So I was holding down on the mouse, dragging that over and able to zoom in at the same time. So that was really easy for me. So I can tell just from looking at this, how right over here, this line's not lined up 100%. If I click away, you can see it's sticking out a little bit. So that tells me that I need to zoom in a little bit to get it lined up a little bit better. Oh, I clicked away though. So let me make sure everything's highlighted again. And we'll click that endpoint and move it over just a little bit. There we go. And then it snapped to that object right there. I'm going to deselect and then delete these lines, my guidelines. And I'm going to do this one more time. Right click and paste. And this one needs to be flipped or rotated maybe twice. Let's see, flip horizontally and then rotate to the left 90 degrees. Nope. I'm going to undo that. No, it's doing the same thing. I guess I want to flip it vertically. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna grab that point, drag it over, line it up just like that. And I'm going to zoom in one more time just to check that I'm all lined up. And I'm not, I'm off a little bit here. So while it's still all selected, I'm going to grab that point and move it over so it snaps to the object. Okay. Great. And now I can deselect and delete my guidelines. So, okie dokie. Let's take a look at our whole image here. And we've got a bit of a traditional flat. So that's looking great. Now we want to make our bracing on our flat. So I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use the double line tool for this because we're going to be, it's going to be cut at an angle. So let's see. Double line tool. So the double line tool is excellent. I'll show you really fast. You click and you can draw two lines and they will be parallel to each other no matter which way you go. As you can see, they're also at a fixed distance from each other. So we have to, if we're going to use this tool, we have to edit it up at the top. So up at the top here, there's 4 different settings for how you draw the line. Are the lines going to, these red dots indicate your click points. So right now I'm on this setting, meaning that if I click the line, the second line is going to pull out on top of my click point. I can also have it draw from the center. So I click on the center and then it comes out, or below or at a fixed point. The other thing we want to look at here, this is separation. So right now I have it, the setting is at 1 foot. So that's why these lines are so far apart when I do this. And I don't want that. So the width of our wood is 2.5 inches, right? So I'm going to put 2.5 inches, enter. And so now we have a fixed double line at the same width as everything else. We want this line to be at a 45-degree angle. So it will snap that way for me at 45 because I have right here snap to angle turned on. So it's snapping at a 45-degree angle. And again, our bracing can be any length. It doesn't matter if it's really close or really far out. It's going to do the same job stabilizing our joints. So I'm going to pull it out 45 degrees. Maybe I'll put it at a nice length for us. So let's go to feet. Enter, enter. So this is a double line, but they are independent objects, these lines. Right now they're both selected, so I could edit them together. But once I click away, each line is going to be its own object as if I used the line tool. But it's pretty nice to be able to draw them parallel only one time. I'm going to keep them selected together right now, though, and move them into place. So let's see, let's zoom in. I'm going to grab midpoint of them and put them right in here. So that line is 2 feet and it's snapped to both of these edges, I believe. Let's double check. Yep. Ooh, very close. There we go. We're a little bit off down here now, but that's okay. All right. So I'm on my selection tool and I'm going to deselect my 2 lines. So now, as you can see, when you hover over, they're 2 separate objects. So in order to highlight both of them again and edit them together, I would have to hold down the shift and select both. what I want to do now is I only want to edit this line so that I can pull this out and so that we can see this 45-degree angle here. So I'm going to click on that. And so now I actually am looking for that double arrowed end point because I do want to adjust the length of this. So I'm not looking for that cross anymore like this. I'm looking for that. So I'm going to click and hold, and I can drag out just like that. It's going to snap to that edge, and I'm going to click one more time to extend that line to make it meet that point. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to click and I'm going to extend just like that. So now I have what looks like a piece of wood here. So I think that there is a way to make an object of lines. But I think that I don't think that's necessary. It is nice when you're doing things like this. So like if I were to hover over my rail here, I like that it highlights the whole piece of wood, right? All four sides, like I said in the beginning. But that's not the case here because I use the line tool, right? But that'll be okay for us. So now I want to create another strap here. I'm going to use the rectangle tool. I'm going to do the same thing that I've been doing. I'm going to create myself a little indented line. Let's see, yeah, so line tool, and I will go from here out 0.75 inches because we have to make sure that we are inset 3/4 of an inch on any flat that we build so they can butt up against each other, right? Okay, use my rectangle tool. Alrighty, I'm gonna pull it out and we're gonna do the same size strap that we did down below for our toggle, right? So I will do, our X length is gonna be 6 inches. And our Y is gonna be 2.5 inches. Enter. Now, that might not be the best idea now that I'm looking at it because we need it at a 45-degree angle, don't we? So I think I can enter it. So let's look at object info. Oh, I have to enter one more time to create the object. We want to rotate it 45 degrees. So I'm going to try that. I haven't done it before, but let's try it. Oh, great. Okay. That's almost right, but we need it at maybe, I think, negative 45 degrees. So I'm going to put in 0 so that it takes it back to its original position. And then I'm going to type in negative 45 degrees. And now we have our strap at the right direction. All right, and now I want to make sure I'm on my selection tool. And so I can look for that cross in order to move it right over here. Okay, but I want to make sure that's okay. So I can tell by that grid line right there, where to go, that those objects are in line with each other right there, which means that this is inset by 45 where it is. So we're in the clear, and I'm going to move it to make sure that it is fitting on my piece of wood, just like that. I'm going to move that right there so that we can do the same thing we did before, copy and paste it and put it in other positions on our flat. So I'm going to highlight this object and change its attributes first. Let's make it hatched. Just like that. And I want to select this strap and the guideline. All right. So now we have the second strap. And I want to rotate this. Let's see, I want to flip it. That's not 100% right. There we go. All right. Take some trial and error. And I'm dragging it up here. Right in there. So I know it's off by a little bit, so I'm going to zoom in so I can make sure I'm making my points meet each other. And of course, just like last time, I can deselect and then I can delete my guidelines that I created. So now we have a brace with a strap. So in order to get this to go over here, I'm going to do this same thing I've been doing, same process, right? I'm going to select this. I'm going to hold down my shift button, select this line, and select that strap. So I've got them all selected now. I'm going to right click on it and where's copy? Copy. Right click and paste. And I'm gonna have to rotate this to the right 90 degrees, I believe. Yep. And move it on over. Hopefully we can get it to fit right in there. Oh, I was holding the wrong point that I thought I was. We'll see here. All right. Ah, too far. So close. Okay. I'm going to grab this object. I'm going to drag it down. Okay. I think we got it in the right spot now. And deselect, and we've got a flat. So this is our rear elevation of our flat, right? So we want to make sure, again, that we're labeling everything. We're going to do a couple of other views of this flat in the same drawing. So we want to indicate that this is what it's supposed to look like from the back. So right over here, text. I'm going to click on that. It's very simple. As soon as you click on it and make one click, it's going to come up with a like a little dialog box. So I'm going to write rear elevation. And then hit enter. Yeah. Oh, if I hit enter, it's actually putting in spots. So I'm going to click away. And then this little text box that comes up is movable just like any other rectangular object. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it and center it on my piece. Just like that. So now we know. All right, so as per the orthographic projection, we're going to do a top view and a side view, and we're actually going to do a front view also just for fun. So I'm going to use my rectangular tool. And we know what the thickness of this is, right? This is going to be simple. We know that a piece of wood, when it's on edge, as if we're, because for a traditional flat, it's on its face, right? But when we're looking down on it, we are looking like this at the piece of wood, just like that. So that's 3/4 of an inch. And so I'm going to do a rectangle that is 4 feet long. I'm going to hit my tab. And we're going to have 4 feet. And the width of that rectangle is only 3/4 of an inch. So 0.75 inches, enter. And I'm going to hit enter one more time to select it. And that is what our flat looks like from the top, right? It's also known as like 2-dimensional scenery for this reason. It's just a fake wall that's almost 2-dimensional, very little dimension to it. So what we do want to do though is we want to make sure these are lined up. Right now they're not. If I kind of drag here along this grid line, it's not lining up with my flat. So as per orthographic projection, we want to make sure that it is lined up. So I'm going to move it right now. Oops, on the wrong tool. Let's see. So selection tool, grab my grid, and I'm going to, it doesn't want to snap at the object. Let's do that. Okay. And we need to use the text button to label this as the top view, right? So we're going to click and I'm going to hit top view. Selection button. And now I can hopefully center this here on our object. And send it to the grid line. Awesome. So the next view we have to do is the side view, which is exactly the same thing because it's almost 2-dimensional, right? But we're going to use our rectangular tool. I'm going to go out to the side here. I'm going to click. I'm going to drag. I'm going to hit the tab button. We want the thickness to be 3/4 of an inch, so 0.75 inches. Tab again to hit the length, which is a total of 8 feet. Enter, and then enter to select it. Always does that. I always forget about. So it does read it in like minus. Whenever you make a point, it thinks of that as the center of your XY axis. So if you wanted to be 8 feet down from that, then you should type in minus 8 feet. I always forget to do that because I want to move it to where I want it on my paper anyway. So I think that's okay. But anyway, if that makes sense to you, then you can go ahead and do it. I'm going to grab the top of my object on my selection tool. move it down here. So I do want to make sure it's in line with this object, which I know is in line with the grid. So it is just like that. So that's our side view. I'm going to go ahead and use the text to write side view. Selection tool to deselect that. And I'm going to put it in the middle of my drawing. So I hope you notice that everything is very similar. Everything should be centered. Everything should be lined up. I should be able to draw a line from here to here, and I can, and it's in line. Same with this, it's in line right there. So the very last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add a front view on this side. So we're gonna go back, and this is gonna be very simple. I'm going to, let's try to do, I was just saying, with your negative numbers. So this is snapped in line with these things, which is great because I want it to be. Click once, start to draw. This is 4 feet. Our flat is 4 feet by, I'll put -8 feet. Oops. Enter, enter. So now we have a flat front view, rear view, top view, and side view. So that is about as detailed as we could get for this drawing, right? Except there is a couple of other things that we do want to do. We want to add dimensions to our drawing so that anybody can know what we mean. So I want to make sure we have enough room. So I'm going to actually go to my selection tool, select my side view and my text that says side view by holding down Shift. And I'm going to move it over a little bit, right about there, so that I can do some call outs. Sometimes it's known as calling out the dimensions, writing in the dimension lines. So on the basic tools, right here, you have a couple of different abilities to call out dimensions. We are going to use this one, Constrained Linear Dimension Tool. Click on that, and to use it, we can, you're going to click on the edge of the points that you want to highlight or that you want to be measured in between. So I'm going to click once where I want to start measuring. I'm going to drag, it's got a little dotted line, so for you to follow along. I'm going to click on the second point that I want to measure between. And then I'm going to pull away, and you can see this like phantom line here. I'm going to click maybe right about here, and it automatically measures it for me, which is kind of amazing. That you don't have to do the map to figure out what that is. Say I could even do, I could figure out this length to this point here, which is pretty much an arbitrary number because this length doesn't matter, right? But if I wanted to, I could tell someone to put the brace 2 feet, 1.5 inches from the bottom right corner of the toggle. Again, that's not necessary, but I could, which is really great. I'm going to delete it. Okay. But what I do want to do is I want to tell people that this should be 4.5 feet from the bottom on center, right? So I'm going to click on this center point here. And then the very bottom point here. And I'm going to drag out. So now people know that this is 4 feet. The center of this toggle is 4 feet from the very bottom of my drawing, right? So that's super helpful. One more thing that, or there's like 2 more things I think we need to measure on here is the width. So I'm going to click here, drag out, and it's 4 feet. And the very last little detail that we want to call out on our drawing is that our corner block is inset 3/4 of an inch. So I think I haven't tried to measure something this small in Vectorworks before. So let's see what it does. Cool, 3/4 of an inch there. And we're gonna do the same thing on this side. Just like that. Okay. Let me see. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, you know what I'm missing? I'm missing front elevation. Enter. Oh no, not enter, I forgot. Okay. I'm gonna move this to be on center. Am I flat? Should be a little more like that. The other thing I like to do is to make sure that my words are all in line with each other, which currently they're not. So I'm going to move this down a little bit. And line them up with the grid right here. There we go. Okay, so now my words are lined up, all of my objects are lined up, and all of the dimensions of my objects are listed. So that's great. Let's see. The one last thing that I want to talk about is line weights. So different like thicknesses of the lines themselves mean different things in mechanical drawings. So the thinnest lines on your drawing should be your dimension lines. Also, Vectorworks will render this when I export it. So the way that it looks right now, like even if I zoom this far out, this line is so thick that it looks like one line, even though it's actually 2 thin ones. That will be much clearer in when we render it and export it. So that's good. But we want these lines to be the thinnest lines. If I click on this, it's at 0.05. So that's pretty thin. But if I click on this object here, it's also at 0.05, which doesn't make sense per our drafting conventions. So I'm going to change the line weight of these objects so that they're a little bit thicker. An overall outline should be one of the thickest points. So this is an overall outline. I'm going to call it 0.5. This is an overall, so I'm also going to call it 0.5. Although it's so small that it's hard to see. We'll see what it looks like when I render it. And this is an overall outline, so I'm going to also call it 0.5. Now for these lines, I want them to be thicker, but not as thick, because these aren't overall lines. They're lines within an object, if that makes sense. So I'm going to make them 0.18. One of the most important things to remember when you're drafting an object to be built is that you want to be able to communicate as clearly as possible. So a lot of the conventions that are in place are there in hopes of making things really clear to the viewer of what it is that you want. But there is leeway in knowing that, like, oh, that is really unclear because I tried to follow the drafting conventions, but now you can't tell what I drew. For you to choose to not do that in order to make it so that it makes more sense to the viewer. So like, drafting convention says that this should be a thick line, but if we can't see it, then it doesn't need to be a thick line. If that's going to render this incomprehensible, then that defeats the purpose, right? So it's always important to consider your viewer when you're going to be drafting something. I want to make sure that all of my corner blocks and straps are also at the 0.18. To do that, I'm just going to select them all instead of going one at a time. Again, I'm holding down the shift button just to select multiple objects at once. Change the thickness to 0.18. And the last thing I need to do is these. Oops. Alrighty. Now I can deselect and I have a pretty good drawing. So the only other thing that I would consider adding to this for you guys when you go to do this next week is down in the title block area, even though we're not going to make a title block, I want you guys to write your name and the scale that it's at. So I'm just going to use text. And I'm going to put name. Scale is 1/2 of an inch is equal to 1 foot. So at least I have that information there from you guys. The last thing that I do want to show you that it exists is, I guess there's two things. One is right here, there is a drawing label, which I only just learned how to use a couple days ago, and I think it's pretty cool. You can click on it and it is going to generate a label for me for my overall plate, right? So say this was similar to the other sheet that I gave you guys. Say there was a ground plan, right? And there was like 5 or 6 different flats, and this was only the dimensions of one of those flats. it would be labeled with a little marker on the ground plan with a letter, either A, B, C, D, E. And then you would go find the drawing that has that number, and that'll tell you like, oh, that's that flat. And that's where that goes. So this will generate it for you. Vectorworks is so complex, right? That you can like enter all this information into the system, and then all you have to do is like put this in there and tell it which drawing it is, and it'll auto generate the information for you. We're not going to do that. We're just going to enter it like manually. So right here, you click once for the edge, the left edge of the drawing label, and then drag over vertically, because you could have it that way, but don't want to. So we want it horizontally. Sorry, not vertical. Horizontally. Click again one more time, and it's going to come up with object properties. And so we can tell it what we're going to call it. And we're going to call this a traditional flat. And then we can also give it a drawing number. We could give it a sheet number. We could do lots of information, right? All I want to do is say, this is our only flat, so we're going to call it A. And it has auto-generated a label for us with the scale, which is really nice. And so we can then, using our basic tools and the selection tool, I can move this, line it up where I want to. I pretty much want it lined up with the center of the page. So let's put it right there. Awesome. And the last thing I'm going to show you is calling out notes. So it's really important. These drawings are all about communication, right? Communicating to someone else who's building it without you there, how to actually do it. So I'm using, or Vectorworks uses this tool here to call out certain things. Whenever you're drafting, hand drafting or computer drafting, if you're going to call out some sort of like information or point to something, your arrow has to touch exactly what it is that you're talking about, not just like pointing towards the general direction. So if I click on this notes tool, let's say we want to specifically say that this is going to be muslin, because maybe, I don't know, or maybe we want to say that it's canvas, or that we want to say that it's a certain wallpaper fabric we picked out or something, right? We want to give some more information to the person building it that isn't shown by drawing. So we can use this tool. So when you click on it, it comes out with like a rectangle and then a line to the side. We can click once to sort of place, or I think, oh yeah, so clicking once kind of places the box where you want it to, and then clicking again is going to be what it's pointing at. So where I clicked isn't going to work because it's off our page. So I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to click right here, and then I'm going to draw down so that my arrow is actually touching this object. I'm going to click. Oh, pulled it up on my other desktop. Hold on. Here we go. So dialog box come up again. And the text that you want to be in that box, you can put right here. So I'm going to say muslin fabric facing. And then it's going to generate this note for me with an arrow pointing directly at what it is. If I were to zoom all the way in here, that arrow is physically touching where I want the muslin to be, right? It's not just like pointing towards it. It's like actually touching it. So I could easily do like a note, for example. Actually, let me show you some of these examples I have open here. This is another worksheet of a traditional stage flat. And someone has, I didn't make this worksheet, by the way. but I was using it to create my other worksheet. So someone has used that to like completely call out some of these things like style and keystone. Or you could even call out like corner block, or that this is a 2x4, right? So there's never too much information, right? This is even called out that this brace is at 45 degrees and this brace is at 45 degrees. Yeah, it can be very helpful to just give as much information as possible. This person has also put in parts of the traditional flat, which is not necessary, but this is an educational worksheet, so that's why they've done that. So now what I can do, when you guys work on this and you get to this, this point in your drawing, you're going to go File and Export. I recommend exporting it as an image file. If you export it as a PDF, it's going to be rotated landscape automatically, which is then kind of annoying because then you have to flip it. But if you export it as an image file, then it will be landscape. So image file, what you want to make sure is selected is all pages a single image. You want, I think it's going to automatically come up with current view or all visible objects. If it's on all visible objects, it's only going to show, it's not going to show your whole page space that you've created, like your whole document. It's going to crop your document to only objects in your drawing. So like this is the furthest edge of my drawing. That's where the image will be cropped to. So we want to make sure that we are all pages as a single image so that we can see the entire thing. The other thing to double check here is if you've set up done the page settings correctly, you'll see that your width is 11 inches and your height is 8.5 and the unit is inches. So that's how you know that you've set it up correctly and that it will print as you see it on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper if you were to choose to do that. Or let's say you're working on a huge drawing and you have like 24 by 36 inches piece of paper that it's going to print out. Those printers are very expensive. Yeah. So I'm going to do this really fast just so I can show you what the line weights look like once they've been rendered and it's been saved. So I'm going to call this practice traditional flat. And I'm going to put my name just so that you guys remember to put your name because you'll be turning this in later. I'll save it to my desktop. Let's go see. I'll open it and it looks like this. So that blue grid that's on there, you can kind of see the difference here, right? This is the line weights. So these line weights are so thin, right? Which is why we want to thicken these ones up a little bit. And this shows us, because it's even thicker, that this is the overall outline shape. If I was being really detailed, I would have an overall thick outline shape here as well, but I don't think it's necessary in this case. But here's our overall thick top view and side view. You don't have to, that's the other thing I should mention, you don't have to call out the measurements on each drawing because this is a single drawing of a traditional flat. So I know because this side view is in line with this dot here and this dot here, that this 8-foot measurement applies to this object and this object and this object, right? These are just, and that's why you always are going to write view, top view, side view, rear elevation, front elevation. And having this label here is so important because now we know that there's only one thing, one set piece on this drawing, but this is 4 different views of that same piece. Okay. I think that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and stop our recording.